questions?
Well, I assumed you had questions, but I can ask questions. So what are some of the effects that the cars could have with the batteries, though? Because that might be an issue where all the metals that they're grabbing them from, because they have to ship that from China and all these different places to get them here to build them, for example, for Tesla and for Nissan and just all the different cars.
Well, there's certainly some negative sides to the electric cars, because of the disposal of batteries. The battery has generally a lot of heavy metals in it. If you dispose of them correctly, or if you recycle all those metals and do it correctly, then so they're not thrown out into the environment somewhere, then you don't have serious problems, big bill. The positive side, of course, is you're not burning any fossil fuels. Once the cars are constructed, then you're not burning fossil fuels except at power plants. And instead of having a very inefficient single car that's polluting like you have now with an internal combustion engine, you've got a car that is getting power from a power source that's pretty efficient. The efficiency of a power plant, even if it's miles away, is generally about 30%. The car is only about 10% efficient. So if you take a gallon of gasoline, only about that much of the gasoline is actually used to move the car, and then only about that much is actually moving you. So a car is really, really super inefficient. So there are a lot of pros. There are cons also with electric, because you're also going to have either an infrastructure built in where you can exchange batteries like filling stations, or have rapid filling stations at destinations. So it's one of those chicken or the egg things. Do you put in the filling stations and then get the electric cars? You get the electric cars and there's no filling stations. That's a problem. For commuter cars, and you think about any place that's an urban area, it makes beautiful sense to have electric cars, because electric cars are not spewing anything out of their tailpipes. So you instantly cut down all the air pollution in a city. And the second thing is, most commutes are pretty short. So even cars today that can do 30, 40, up to 100 miles before they need to be recharged, many people could commute all week long on one charge. Or you're going home at night, you charge and you've got plenty of power. So most commuters could use electric cars right now.
Well, that's interesting, because we did a survey and we went out to a bunch of people and we said, how many miles do you drive a day? And a lot of the answers were 10 to 15, so it made sense to have really an electric car, because it's efficient in that way. It can get you there, back in 10 times that, really, because they're really improving the cars. And also they're becoming zero emissions as well in the household now, because they might be putting solar panels into the houses. I know that Tesla and well, just really any electric car company, they're trying to make the cars so zero emission, and the owners are installing their own solar panels.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could have your own solar power that's charging the battery, or you could have a battery being charged during the day while you're driving the car around, and then when you get home at night, you just swap the battery in and out with the used battery too.
Well, the issue with that one is that for some of the cars, for example, like Tesla, the entire bottom of the car is the battery.
It's a big battery.
It's a very big battery.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, it creates a very low center of gravity, because there's a lot of weight there, which is really safe for the car, because you can't really flip over the car. But
very powerful. Electric engines are super powerful. You think about the big locomotives that you see pulling trains. Those are electric engines doing that. I mean, there's a diesel generator that makes the power, but it's electric engines that are actually producing the power. So huge power. So they'd be fun to drive too. I think they'd have lots of acceleration, and they'd be really quiet. You could cut down on noise pollution. You could make them very light also. Of course, my idea in environmental sciences, in a city like Miami with all the anger issues for commuters, we should make them into electric bumper cars, and then we could really have fun.
Well, now the other thing is that you don't have to put oil in the car anymore. And the engines are very efficient, because it's one piece that's moving constantly. So it's very hard to break the car.
Yeah.
So that it's a lot easier than other cars, because you don't really have to maintain it that much.
Yeah, much easier, right?
Yeah. And do you have any interest in getting an electric car in the future?
Well, I've actually thought about it. You've seen some of these little electric cars, little white ones that are
Yes.
that are going around. I've actually thought about having one of those, and I thought it might be a great idea for the school to buy one of those for the environmental science teacher, and to be able to commute. And you can put a big RE sticker on it, say, 0 emissions, thousands of miles per gallon, that kind of stuff.
Thousands of miles.
And could you talk about like future technologies like the hydrogen cell and those
Well,
types of...
yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in the fuel cell, because a fuel cell basically runs off hydrogen. Again, the infrastructure is not there to produce hydrogen cheaply right now, but I see in the future the ability to split water and make hydrogen and oxygen. We did that in class. We actually took a solar panel and you 2 electrodes, stick it in water, and you get hydrogen on one side, oxygen on the other. There's your fuel, hydrogen. Goes into a fuel cell, goes through a little membrane, produces electricity, and what comes out out of your tailpipe in one of these cars? Pure water. So you have no emissions, and basically you can produce the hydrogen over and over with solar panels. You could have fields of solar panels or any other kind of renewable resource and use that to make the hydrogen. And then you've got this wonderful, beautiful burning fuel that only has water as an end product. So that's a potential, I think, for the future also. You can do it in any scale, size. You can do it small for a car. You can do it big for a bus. You can do stacks of fuel cell wafers and put them in a building and run a whole building. So I think there's a big potential for hydrogen in the future.
And this is also for our economics class, and well, the reason why we came to you because you're an expert on the environment, and that in the future it would help us in the end, because we spend a lot of money trying to get rid of pollution and all that, and I was wondering if you would know anything about that and how it would possibly just help us in the long run.
Well, I think the economics of pollution, they come back to bite us in all kinds of other ways that are not given a value sometimes. A lot of times we don't think about how much it's costing us for all the problems that people are having from breathing bad air. Those are huge problems. I mean, those are things that affect human health, and that's a very expensive thing that we don't put a price tag on that when we start burning more fossil fuels. The same thing with the climate. As sea level comes up, and it is coming up, and there's no question that climate change is going to cause enormous billion-dollar problems everywhere in the coastal areas. Florida's going to have billions and billions of dollars of solutions to solve all this coastal erosion, and if we don't do something about climate change, then in the long run the expense of an electric car will seem pretty small, or converting over to alternative energy, the cost of those things will seem pretty small when we start dealing with the effects of climate change. We're already seeing that. Look at Sandy. Look at the storms and the droughts, and it's not like it's in the future. It's happening now, and even insurance companies are looking at that value when they're adding more onto your insurance premiums. Sea level rise, more storms, all that stuff is all figured in by insurance companies. I mean, they're already looking at those things. So.
Fantastic. Well,
Good.
yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. I appreciate your